Sweet loving sunshine. If it's all in the air, then it's all on your mind. Let's talk about it, family. Y'all come on in the house. Grab your beverages, coffee, tea, and spirit water. There's a lot on the table. Let's start out with this eclipse that took place. But before we talk about it, it's been a wild month with the sun in Virgo so far. But as we usher in the Libra season as a Virgo sun, it ain't done yet. We got some more to say. Y'all, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. And let's dive into it, y'all, deeply. This solar eclipse took place yesterday at the 29th or last degree of Virgo in the southern hemisphere, meaning we couldn't see it here in the US, Europe, or on the continent of Africa. However, it was seen in South New Zealand, Antarctica, Australia, and the Pacific Ocean. Now, as I showed you guys before about the Saros cycle, the last one that took place on the 7th was in Saros cycle or Saros cycle 128. I'm pronouncing it wrong. But this one is Saros cycle 154. Now, I'm not going to go through all of that again and ask y'all to look at it with me because I have it up here, actually. The same dates keep popping up. But you can Google it. Saros is spelled S-A-R-O, Saros cycle 154. And go back like 120 years. And if you think this is woo-woo or the astrology sources are too woo-woo, pull it up on NASA. That's official. NASA has a whole catalog of the Saros cycle. The Saros cycle began in with the Babylonians who clocked the cycles of the moon, and the Chinese used the moon to map the Saros cycles. So they were able to even go back in time as a result of picking up on the different Saros cycles that are in increments of 18 years, 11 days, and I believe something like 3 hours. But I'll recap. Okay, so I have a little water here. Let me take a sip of that. The first one that pops out is 1917. And I looked up the years of World War One. We can go back even further, but I started with World War One. That was between 1914 to 1918. And the year in the Saros cycle is 1917. So my very smart and genius son pointed out to me, Mom, that's the year that the United States entered World War One, 1917. Okay, so we moved on. I was showing him this Saros cycle. The next one was between 1935 and 1953. That one keeps coming up because that's when Pluto was out of bounds. And I made a mistake last time. I was wrong with those Pluto dates. The out of bounds Pluto for this particular season ends around November 3rd. So Pluto is out of bounds until November 3rd. However, after looking at several other sources and actually I was a bit confused because it dips below the depending on where you are, southern or northern hemisphere, it dips below declination, if I can say it, a few times for the next or over the next 100 years, I believe, and then it won't go out of bounds for 1,000 years. So that's how it works. But that particular Saros cycle, to pick back up where we were, 1935 to 1953 was the years of the Second World War. And 1935 to 1945, I believe it was. And so, of course, this energy increases and builds in intensity. So we're not talking about any particular day or a few days. So that energy took a few years to build and reached its peak around the midpoint of 1935. And of course, the war was over by 45, 44, 45. Now, moving on, the next date that popped out was 1971, 18, 19 years later. And by that time, we were in the war of Vietnam. Now, it was so much. I went and looked at one of those videos that talks about what was happening during that time. And so during that time was a lot that began. And I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember All in the Family was premiered that year. Also, Soul Train premiered that year. A lot of stuff happened that year. So go look it up. Nixon took us off the gold standard. So our money was no longer backed by gold. It was backed by IOUs. And so it took about 10 years before Reagan came into office and the policies that were implemented changed things even more. So the next set of dates was 1989. 1989, we're talking Tiananmen Square. Oh, before that, 1971 there was a coup in Uganda and Idi Amin. I don't know if you all remember the movie the Last King of Scotland, and how gruesome that particular term was over there in Uganda. 89 was, I remember it being more of a financial because it was the subprime lending era and leading up to the dot-com crash that took place about 10 years after that. But during that time, it was a subprime lending, 89. And then you had Tiananmen Square, you had the fall of the Berlin Wall, you had the ending, well, moving towards the ending of the USSR, but a lot of political events took place during that particular year as well. Then we move up to 2007, which was, even though it was not quite 18, 19 years later, I guess we're talking about that time, 36 years later, perhaps, if we're looking at a couple of cycles. But 89, after 89 was 2007. And of course, 2007 led up to the market crash. And I was looking back over my own life. At that time, I'd moved back home from Georgia and I retook my real estate license exam, passed it with flying colors, ready to jump back in the game, and the market crash. So I experienced my own financial crisis or setback during that time. But let's move further with these eclipses here. This eclipse, although it did not or was not able to be seen in North America, it was seen in Africa, New Zealand, South New Zealand, Antarctica, Australia, and the Pacific Ocean. And although it was not seen in the Northern Hemisphere, it was the timing and a couple of other factors that make this eclipse important to us. The timing being at the fall equinox and Libra season, the day before. And that begins today, the fall equinox and Libra season. This is our set energy. Offset, as we know, is that balance, harmony, truth, justice, and reciprocity that is required. That is what universal energy, universal intelligence is asking of us to focus on. We have Mercury. I'm going to show you the chart, and we have Mercury in Libra. We also have Mars at the anaretic last degree of Libra. So that 29 degree is strong. However, today it moved to 0 degrees of Scorpio, I believe. So Mars is in its own sign. However, for the next couple of days, Mars, as it moved into Scorpio, immediately squares Pluto. So we'll talk about that as well. But the connection to the North and South Node, Hindu tradition teaches us about Rahu and Ketu, and these are points on either side of the moon that gives us direction. Now, another mistake I made in my growing years, learning all this production and so forth. When I tell y'all, because I'm a Virgo, I want to do a good job for you. I want to make it interesting and so forth. And when I tell y'all, I labor over this for a couple of days before I put it out there. And that's even after I thought about it. But this is Virgo, and Virgo is practical. And actually, we're our own worst critics. As I mentioned, a Virgo sun, but we're our own worst critics. And one of our lessons in life is to learn that there's no such thing as perfection. Well, we strive for it. We'll put it that way. But that connection to those points in the Hindu tradition is Rahu and Ketu, where we've been, even in our past lives, and where we are going. We can draw from the gifts that we have from our past and bring that forward. And I'm going to mention several times in this video Sankofa energy, because this is the focus. We have to go back and get it. In order for us to move forward, we have to go back in the past and learn from our past in order to move forward. But this is the head of the dragon. The Rahu and Ketu energy in Hindu tradition talks about the tail and the head of the dragon. The mythology goes something about the ocean of milk and honey. I believe I may be getting that confused with the tradition that I was raised with, but definitely an ocean of milk. And there's a battle, and the head is separated from the tail, and this is Rahu and Ketu. And so this energy is also in connection with the past eclipse. Now, the Chinese look at the eclipse through the lens of the dragon as well. The head and the tail of the dragon, well, it's not separated, but they look at it from the standpoint of it being affecting the health of the emperor. And therefore, they clean pots and pans to scare the energy so as to disturb the chaotic energy that is brought on by the eclipse that is there to eat the sun, which is similar to ancient Kemet. And in ancient Kemet, they saw the eclipse as an omen for what was to come. And mainly, we're talking about Pharaoh, or I forget the name of it. Sahu is the ancient Kemetic word for Pharaoh, but it was mainly focused on the Pharaoh, like the emperor and their energy. But this was when Ra battled with Apep, and Apep is the crocodile-looking dragon, or crocodile archetype that is in the underworld. And I believe this chaotic energy is called Apophis. So whether Apophis and Apep are one and the same, I'm not sure. But Apophis was given to the asteroid that we are going to encounter on April 13th in 29. There's a small keyhole in which Apophis may enter that will determine whether or not it's going to come to Earth. And so that's something they're keeping an eye on. But the culmination of the significations of all this energy is important for us to pay attention. So I stress in my writings how time is your most valuable asset. And what we do in that time is important because there is no time and space. There is no time and space. And therefore, time collapses on itself. It collapses on itself. And the past gives us the present. And therefore, in our subconscious minds, we can predict the future or at least create our own future. But I'd like to give you some visuals while I go forward. Straight out the gate this week, there are configurations between the planets. And this this energy is more so concentrated in a configuration that we call a kite. And this Sankofa energy is real talk. It's this actually that's what I call three-eye atlas, Sankofa, because it's traveling retrograde against the motion of the planets. It's actually moving in the direction of the precession of the equinox. And so the precession of the equinox is the great year, which is between 24,900 and 26,000 years. Sometimes it speeds up at time as it moves closer to the sun. And as it moves further away from the sun, it slows down. But Three-Eye Atlas is going to line up with the sun in Virgo around October 3rd. By that time, it's going to be on the opposite end of the Milky Way on the other side of the sun. So we won't be able to see it until around October 21st. But every planet is retrograde, or the outer planets. Every planet does not appear retrograde from Earth's perspective at times, but some of the planets do. We all know that Mercury goes retrograde 3 times a year for the most part, but these outer planets, when they go retrograde, they slow down and they become direct and they move very slowly, which means that as they slow down to station direct or to station retrograde, this energy is very potent. And as I mentioned in my last video, all of these outer planets are at the same degrees, 0 to 1 degree. Neptune is about to go, well, all of them are retrograde, but Neptune is about to go retrograde back into Pisces. It's at 0 degrees of Aries at this particular point. But this energy is pretty wild. So this kite formation here, when I discuss the configurations, this is what I'm talking about. This one just happens to be one of the notable ones, the kite configuration. And I'm going to outline it here so you can see it. And this minor, what we call a minor grand trine in astrology, points to the outer planets. We have Pluto at 1 degree, we have Neptune at 0 degrees, and we have Uranus at 1 degree. And because the planets move so slowly, that 1 degree difference is still almost an exact trine, but they are still communicating. And it being the flowing energy part of the kite, this communication between the outer planets is asking us to focus on the point of this kite. So Uranus and Pluto are making a harmonious aspect to the sun. The moon has moved away, and it is now already at 11 degrees of Libra. But when the eclipse occurred, they were at 29 degrees, exactly opposite Saturn, which has moved retrograde another degree and is now at 28. Now, what's interesting is I pulled up a couple of astrological points that are significant to our understanding of spirituality and mythology. As I mentioned already, Apophis being the chaotic energy that is the archetype of the eclipse, not the archetype of the moon, but the archetype of the eclipse. Eclipse energy is chaotic. And what I found was Apophis is right here sitting conjunct Mercury by 2 degrees. Mercury rules Virgo and Gemini, the signs of communication. One gathers the data, the other one is critical of the data, analyzes the data, comes up with practical solutions. And so the practical solutions are going to be found here in Pisces, its opposite sign. But over here in Libra, where we are being asked to focus on balance, we have the sun at 0 degrees, we have Mercury at 7 degrees, Apophis at 9 degrees, and Mercury is Tahuti in ancient Kemet. This is thought. I was pronouncing thought's name as Thoth, knowing that the etymology behind the word Thoth is where we get the word thought. However, because it's Thoth, we can reverse that pronunciation and we come out with the word or the name thought. So thought is Mercury or Tahuti. Apophis right next door, and the moon in Libra. Mars has moved on to 0 degrees of Scorpio, and it's in its own sign. And so it is making a square to Pluto. So the next couple of days, the 22nd to around the 24th, 25th, are going to be very potent days where we're going to have so many power struggles and people taking action, good, bad, or indifferent. We can channel that energy with the energy of movement. And song and dance is one of the ways that Black people have always channeled their energy, going back to Africa, where we all sang and danced. There are many other cultures that took that song and dance with them as a way to fellowship with one another and have community. But Quawa is the asteroid that is associated with the Pacific traditions and Pacific populations. And Quawa is the asteroid responsible for song and dance. And is co-signed by the Hopis. The Hopi Indians or the Hopi tradition, the Hopi population in ancient tradition is sitting right here at the astrological point between Saturn and Neptune, between the uh the invisible and the visible. To be or not to be is what was on my mind. And they're at the same degree. Now, the Hopi also is known for their prophecies and warnings and predictions. And so that's does not escape me here. And so that is exactly opposing this the sun by a couple of degrees. And so, as you can see, this tension with the multiple red lines, which are indicative of tension, is is just showing us over and over again our focus. Now, getting back to the kite, uh, with this Mars energy squaring Pluto for a couple of days, it is also making an aspect at 0 degrees to Chiron. Not it's Chiron. Chiron, I believe, is at nope, it's making an aspect to Neptune. It's making an irritation or disharmonious type of connection or communication to Neptune. And so, again, giving us the opportunity to make a difference in our reality, be the change that we want to see is where I'd like to go, which is a old Carl Jung saying. But not only do we have the outer planets in the grand trine, we also have a yod or yod is what some call it as a finger of God. And so this finger of God is a harmonious, this green line here, configuration between Hopi, Uranus, and Mars at 0 degrees and 1 degree Uranus. And Uranus is the planet of breakthroughs, innovations, surprises. It could go either way because we live in a world of duality. So different in your individual life could be anything sudden or surprising, breakdown. The car could break down depending on which house it is in your chart, breakthroughs and innovations, scientific discoveries. We're going to see a lot of that. But the yod or the yod is a configuration that also asks us to work on the focus of the point of the yod, wherever that is. And in this case, we have that grand trine there. We have the yod here, and I thought I saw another one yesterday. Well, this yod here, well, it's not really a sextile between Mercury and the sun, but there's still that focus at that 0 degree. All right. But the only other thing I wanted to mention while I'm in here before I come out of this chart is Jupiter and it being making an aspect to, I believe it was maybe one of the asteroids, a number of different asteroids, or one of the uh fixed stars that I was looking at. But Jupiter is still in Cancer, uh, helping us to maintain our focus on family, lineage, and roots, and the expansion of home and family. But I also wanted to compare that to the United States chart, which I've shown you before, but it's still that Jupiter is still making aspects to the United States uh, planets that are in Cancer. Okay, so I'm back. Let's then move on to Neptune. Neptune, there is the understanding of groups of people, okay? And they groups of people have their own archetype as well. And so if Neptune represents Black people, African American people, indigenous people, people of color, then this is an opportunity to create structure to who we are as a people, and other groups, because we come together like atoms come together to form a molecule. Now, it is my understanding, and I know this, and I teach my children this. We are all one people. We are all one people. Um, we all came out of Africa, went our own ways. The Chinese went into Asia around 77,000 years ago. They were the Khoisan people out of Africa. They moved out of there around that time. You had the Dravidians who moved into to India. You had those who moved into Europe and those who came over here to the Americas in the different waves. And we all take pride in who we are and our families and the groups of people that we uh, have so many commonalities with. And I look at things from the perspective of the law of correspondence. The seven Hermetic laws all kind of blend in and work together with one another. They work in synastry with one another. But the law of correspondence explains a lot. And I look at it from the perspective of the cosmos, the earth, and my body. So whatever is happening in the cosmos is also happening in the earth and is also happening in my body. So if I want to understand something, I look at it from that perspective. Oh, okay. So if something is happening in the cosmos, how does that uh coordinate or correspond to whatever is happening on the earth or in my body? And I was listening to Randall Carlson. I'm also a student of Randall Carlson, and I believe he's an engineer. I don't know what is, but he's an enthusiast of geology. And sometimes when I learn from people, I like to give people credit where credit is due. Uh, when I when I learn something from people, uh, I I of course make the connections to what I already know. And sometimes it's that key. We may have heard it even before, but sometimes when we hear it from other people, like Sam Reynolds, one of my astrology mentors, who made that connection between the the Gemini, house of Gemini being associated with communication, commerce, and community. That helps me to remember it and so forth. And so I just want people to know where I got that from. And that's important. But he was talking about, Randall Carlson was talking about the numbers. And they were talking about him and his guests about the number 5 and the number 6. The number 5 is man's law. And if you were to notice the badge of the sheriff in town, you would notice that he wears the 5-pointed star. This is the path of Venus. Okay. And the number 6 is associated with universal law. And this is Saturn. And I'm going to show that to you in a minute. But I just wanted to point that out here because I remember reading Yogananda Parahamsa's book that taught us about, or taught me about, the 5-pointed star, that we are the 5-pointed star. And it was a little black book, and I really can't think of the name of it because it's been decades since I read it. But as I learned about Islam, arm, leg, arm, head, that's Allah, the 5-pointed star. 6, the 6-pointed star is the star tetrahedron. I believe that one had 6 stars. That's who we are, based on the 5 platonic solids that everything in nature is made of. But the star tetrahedron is the Star of David in 3D, basically. And that's what we're made out of, the star tetrahedron. A lot of people, or some companies, hospitals, I've seen hospitals use that in their logo. But everything that our ancestors taught us is within us, and it's all around us in plain sight. And we're starting to recognize it. We're starting to remember the pieces. And I think that is a wonderful thing. But I want to show you a couple of visuals. And let's see if I can share that with you. Okay, and that's where we're talking about the eclipse. And as I mentioned, I don't know if I did, Rob in the light of the sun, but the spring and fall equinox, or the spring and fall eclipses, occur twice a year within 2 weeks of one another, lasting between 6 and 18 months. There's the light of the world, the sun, S-U-N, on the cross, where spirit descends into matter. There's the sun walking on water. The sun's corona, which is where we get the words El Corazon. The corona is the crown. The corona is the heart of the sun, where we get the word coronary, which is also associated with the heart and cardiovascular system. It is used, believe it or not, in so many logos, it's not funny. I could show you so many, I don't want to call their names. But when we have a lunar eclipse, it is when the earth passes between the sun and the moon. And when we have a solar eclipse, it's when the moon passes between the earth and the sun. But a lot of people are not aware that we're in a binary star with Sapdet. Some know her as Sophis, but most of us know him, I could say, as Sirius. And Sirius is just a combination of the words or the names Isis and Osiris. But when I mentioned the precession of the equinox between 24,900 years and 26,000 years, this is what we're talking about. Ra and the great sun, Sabdet. And as they part from one another on their orbits, at their furthest points is when it slows down, or when they slow down, or the sun slows down. But as they approach one another is when they speed up. And so we're starting to move into the time where our sun is moving closer to the great sun. From the Kali Yuga to the Dwapara Yuga, if we're looking at it from the perspective of the Hindu tradition. But the ancient Kemetans look at the solar eclipse as an omen. And they believe that it was a sign of danger, or it was a sign that the gods were angry. And some even saw it as the sun being eaten, as it actually does every evening when it dips below the horizon. But as I mentioned, people used to make a lot of noise to try to scare the sun away. But this is an example of some of the imagery that was put forth as a result of those metaphors of Ra, for example, in battle with a Pep or Apophis. And the Ankh breathes life back into Ra when the moon passes over. And a lot of people don't realize I was one of them, although I knew we are electromagnetic beings and, in essence, batteries. The sun charges our vitality. And this is why we need to go out in it every day, especially melanated people need to be out in the sun in the morning or at the last hour of the day to recharge our battery. And I was sitting there, and when I heard that, I just casually said, like we charge our crystals. And it just hit me in aside the head, because in our pineal gland are crystals. In our hemoglobin are crystals. And I learned that in 2018, that cell generation involves crystals. Here's a dragon, or a simulation of the dragon swallowing the sun. And this is just some slides of the outer planets and the highlights of some of their significations. Pluto, one of my favorite planets, being significant and related to individual and generational power and transformation. And that's what's happening with us. And Neptune, imagination and illusion, spirituality. Neptune rules water. We're having so many floods and earth events. Blood is related to Neptune, oil, alcohol, medicines or poisons. But Neptune is related to illusions, our imagination, fantasy, which is where we derive motion pictures and films from. But it is also associated with our instincts, and Neptune lacks boundaries because it's fluid, and it wants to unify as the ruler of Pisces. And our big boy Jupiter, that's my other favorite planet, Jupiter, abundance and expansion. So whatever Jupiter touches brings abundance and expansion, even to our waistlines. So we have to be mindful of that when Jupiter is around our ascendant. But Saturn, which brings us structure, responsibility, and discipline. So with Saturn being right next to Neptune gives us that duality that is the focal point. That duality of to be or not to be. I don't know why I can't even think of his name now, but Shakespeare keeps coming to mind because Neptune is the illusion, it is the invisible. It's also a spiritual planet, but Saturn is what gives us structure. So whatever we're building, Saturn is there to help us bring it into manifestation. A lot of us are not aware that Saturn has a hexagon. And so this is what I was pointing to earlier, the six-pointed star, but Saturn has a hexagon at its north pole. So this is in the picture, a 2D version of the hexagon. And that is the six-sided polygon. So everything is built from the five. But we're in Libra season now. So I'm back. This is where I'm going to bring this video to a close. I'm going to do my best to bring you videos more often as I learn to edit myself and even get acquainted with the help of AI. I should get better at this. But by all means, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Help us grow the channel. Links will be in the description box below. And before I go, I'd like to pull an oracle card for us. Let's see what the ancestors have to say to us today. Okay? I shuffled them a little bit, but oh my goodness, one jumped out. And I want y'all to know what jumped out. Surrender. Surrender. Surrender to what? The truth. Justice, balance, and reciprocity. But I'm gonna shuffle just to see what comes out after a proper shuffle. How about that? Let's see. There we go. Queen Mother Nanny. Queen Mother Nanny wants us to have liberation. Most of us know what that means, but I want to see what the corresponding key book has to say about Queen Mother Nanny. Queen Mother Nanny of the Maroons was a spiritual leader, military strategist, and revolutionary. This Ashanti healer was brought to Jamaica in chains and escaped to lead rebellions. Nanny helped to free over 800 enslaved people. Break free. Your dreams hold the power and keys to your liberation. You are freedom yourself. Rise up. You deserve to feel free. What do you imagine for yourself? Daring to manifest your dreams is a part of your personal liberation. Find your own personal liberation codes in your soul's unspoken desires. Life is too short to live within someone else's story. Divine blessings and magic are on your side. Enjoying your freedom fully is the best gift to your ancestors. I can't add nor take away from that. I'm going to end the video on that note. Y'all take it light. All right? Peace.